Welcome to part 6 on my lecture on the Sicilian defense. This should be my last lecture on the Sicilian defense. The Sicilian defense starts off by e4, c5, and then I've been covering the open defense, which starts where white plays knight f3, and I've covered the moves by black of d6 and knight c6, and now I want to cover 3 variations that start off with e6. So why does black play e6? Well, basically it's about this the bishop on f8. So black is now planning on trying to develop this bishop or give priority to developing this bishop. So how does play normally continue? So play e6, and then the most common moves after this are very similar to other variations that we studied. White will play d4, black will trade off the pawn, the knight will recapture. And now this is where we come to sort of the 3 forks in the road. The first variation I want to discuss is knight to c6, which is called the Taimanov variation. The next variation I'll discuss is where black plays a6, which is called the C-A-N, the K-A-N variation. And then the last one I'll discuss is where black plays knight to f6, which is the beginning of the 4 knights. So basically, like I said, the first variation I want to discuss is where black plays knight c6. So we'll play it. And what is black's plan? Well, black's plan is to play this bishop here on f8 to rather c5 or to b4. And actually, white can stop this by playing the knight here to b5. And we'll actually see an example of this in the 4 knights variation. And then and white has the option of basically playing something like this if he really wants to exert, control along here. That's one of the plans that available to white. So let's see how the Taimanov normally plays out. Well, after knight, black just now played knight to c6. So how does play normally continue? Well, white will play knight to c3, and then usually black plays a6 because white has a big control over this b5 square. Sort of like you see this in the Najdorf variations too. White will play bishop e2. I mean, if you think about it, white really can't play the bishop to d3, just lose the knight, and not too many good places for the white bishop. It also prepares castling. Black will play queen to c7. White will then castle. Black plays knight f6. So now white cannot push this pawn forward. Sort of one of the reasons why black played queen c7. Now white plays bishop to e3. Hopefully, if you've noticed some of the common moves in the Sicilian for white and for black, it's sort of, if you study the various variations, you can sometimes notice some common themes running throughout, or common placement of the pieces, or maybe several squares where the pieces go. And then let's see, now black plays bishop b4. Obviously one of the goals black was trying to achieve. And now white will actually play knight to a4, and the reason for this is that it's headed towards b6, where it will be actually supported by, doesn't look like it can go there, but it'll actually be supported by this bishop. Now black plays castles, good to get the king out of the center before all the action starts to let loose now. And then white will exchange knights. Black will recapture with the b pawn, moving the pawn towards the center. More central control, and also opening up this file for the rook, meaning the rook will move here. Then he'll be able to control this file. Now knight to b6, and bishop to rook to b8. And I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to move on to the next variation. So let me back up to where we had our sort of fork on the road, which was black's fourth move. So right there. So we just discussed where black plays knight to c6. Now what happens, the next variation I want to cover is called the can variation. It's where black plays this move, a6. So what does it look like, or why does black play a6? Well, really it's a non-committal move, meaning it's a wait and see move by black, and black can proceed in many different ways. He could, black after playing a6 here could actually then move, on his next move, knight c6. He could actually play g6, and things like this. So he actually gives himself options. He makes a move. He's waiting to see what white's going to play. Then he's going to base his plan on how white plays. So basically a6 is a non-committal move. It does take away this square from the knight and from the bishop. So let's see how play would normally continue under the can variation. So black plays a6, and then white will probably play knight c3. Like I said, these are just sort of common moves, not necessarily all the moves that can be played. Let's say black plays sort of in a Taimanov fashion, and then white plays bishop to d3, because the knight's not in any danger from being taken, like in the last variation we covered, where white actually played the bishop to e2. Black plays knight f6. Once again, we cannot move the e pawn because it would just be taken by the queen. So the white castles, and then black plays knight c6. Now white has to decide what to do with the knight. Should it defend it, or move it away, or capture the knight? White will decide to defend. And then black plays bishop d6. Looks a little counterintuitive. It almost looks like you're blocking in one of your center pawns. White will play h3. Probably there's other moves available besides h3, but I sort of liked h3, and so did my computer. So I'm going to stick with that line. And then black will play bishop to e5, now attacking the knight twice here. And now white will just trade off the knight like that. And that does it for the can variation. So let's back up and cover the last variation, the four knights. So the four knights will start off by playing actually knight to f6. So black plays a knight f6. Now some of you could ask, why don't I just play the pawn up? Well, here's the reason why: because of queen a5 check, knight to c3, and then the queen just snaps off the pawn. So that's not the best move. So white normally plays knight to c3, and then unfortunately I'm running out of time on this lecture, so I'm going to have to play through these moves quickly. Black usually plays knight f6. White will play knight to b5 to stop to stop bishop to b4. Black plays d6, bishop to f4, attacking this pawn here twice, or 3 times actually. e5, the bishop moves away, and now black attacks that knight on b5. The knight moves, black plays b5.